Hello, and thanks again for joining me. Today is Therapeutic Thursday. It is the end of March, and I don't know about where you live, but here in the Northeast, we've had some unseasonably warm weather. Not that we're complaining. Usually we go right from winter to summer, somewhere in June. So we're not complaining. We're pretty happy to have some unseasonably warm weather up here. I want to first take a minute on this Therapeutic Thursday to really thank you for watching these videos. I know that they can be lengthy, so I try to keep them down a little bit, but sometimes my messages seem to need more attention. So I want to truly thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to these messages and make comments, and whether it's to me personally or to actually liking the comments on the post that I put on my Facebook page or the Hope Counseling page or even the YouTube page. I want to thank you so much for giving activity to my page and showing your friends and watching it yourself. And I'm so glad that these messages have blessed you and help to guide you and give you some clarity. So you can continue to do all those things and even subscribe to this page by hitting the bell on the top of the page for your YouTube page so that you can subscribe and keep getting notifications. I would truly appreciate that. And also, if you have some things that you have some questions on and you'd like some guidance on, or you're actually looking for help on something specific, I can certainly also design some of these around specific requests too, because if you have a question or a need, then chances are a lot of other people do as well. So you could either put a comment on my YouTube posts, or you can actually email me directly at Beck, BECC Nelson, at hopecounselingri.com, or you can go to becknelson.com, and there'll be a button on that page so that you can email me and make some comments and suggestions or requests for future posts. So for this Therapeutic Thursday, usually I build these responses to things that the trends that I've seen in my sessions. One of the trends that I've seen in my sessions is for people to tend to not, when they have a resource, to wait too long before they go to that resource because they, tell themselves, it's fine, I don't need it, And so I'll kind of give you an example of that, right? A quick example of that is if any of you out there have migraines, and if you're an empath, empaths do tend to suffer a lot of migraines because, as I talked about in my post earlier this week, we absorb a lot of other people's energy, and that tends to manifest itself in our bodies. So if you have migraines or a headache, for example, traditionally, if you've talked to your doctor, there's a medication that you can take to assist with that migraine getting out of control. And your doctor will tell you, take that when you first start to feel the migraine coming on. And me included, I have one of those medications too. The problem is that we wait too long to take the medication. You're supposed to try to take it when your body is telling you, you feel it kind of coming on. There's things that happen that you sense you're probably going to have one of those headaches, and they wait. Me included. Why do we do that? We have something that can help, and that we know it can help because we've done it before, or the doctor has told us before, and we don't do it until it's too late. So I'm gonna kind of talk about this a little bit and make this intervention. And from listening to my other posts that one of the principles that I stand on, that I see a lot, is that people's intended solution to their problem actually makes a bigger problem. So this is an example of that in the intervention for that. So a lot of times the problem is people say to themselves, I don't want to be a wuss. It's fine. I can deal with it. It's not going to be anything. I can work my way through it. And this isn't just, you can kind of fill in migraine for just about anything. When you're starting to feel depressed, you feel yourself sliding backwards into old behaviors, or you were doing things that you stopped doing, like eating right, exercising, taking walks, spending time with your family, etc. When you feel yourself sliding back with depression, anxiety, what have you, and you don't do anything about it right away. And it's because you tell yourself, I'm fine, right? That notion of suck it up, buttercup. You've heard me say that before too. So you tell yourself that the problem is that people just kind of just turn to things to deal and to cope, and they don't try to work it out themselves. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to ignore it so that I don't think that see it coming on because it's just easier to ignore it than to actually know that it's coming on. Or I'm just going to do the suck it up buttercup routine, right? So what happens is when you don't deal with things, your body has a way of saying to you, hey, it taps you on the, I was going to say shoulder, but literally it could be anything. It taps you on the forehead, you get pains in your neck. Your body will get louder and let you know that you need to deal with this, okay? So here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to have you start to think about things in a 0 to 10 scale. Okay, so this is called a Likert scale, and I like rating things on a 0 to 10 scale because it sort of makes things more concrete, right? I mean, a lot of times when people are in counseling, I'll say, how was your week? Good. What does that really mean? So to quantify it a little bit more, I might say, so last week, if you were able to manage your depression, a good part of the time. So most of the time, it's not that you didn't feel sad, but that you managed it when you started to feel it coming on. How did you do that? Like, what was give me a number out of 10 that you think you were able to do that successfully? And they might say, a 7 or 10 or something like that. And I'll say, okay, that's great, because 2 weeks ago it was a 5. So that helps us to know something that you're doing is working because that number went up. If that number stays the same or goes down, it means that we're not addressing something or we need to put something else in place. Okay, so start to think about things in a Likert scale, a 0 to 10 scale. Now, I want you to think about whatever something is for. Usually I say I want you to think about when you're feeling down or when you're feeling anxious. Those are 2 things that I use a lot. And I want you to tell me, think about in your head right now, how anxious or depressed or feeling down do you feel right now out of 10? Put that in your head, okay? So, usually is it a lower number? Is it a higher number? Wherever that is, now write that down. Now, here's the thing. How do you know that you're at that number? Okay, and here's what I want you to become more aware of. Your body has a way of telling you how far up you are on that scale. But most people are not aware of what a lot of those bodily cues are until they get much higher up on the scale. So here's the exercise I'm going to have you do today. I want you to write 0 to 10 on a piece of paper, 10 at the top of the paper and 0 at the bottom of a regular piece of lined paper, okay? And then in between that, I want you to write the numbers from 1 to 10. Now, I want you to pick whatever it is that you're going to rate, whether it's your level of feeling down or feeling anxious, or you can even rate your headaches or pain in your shoulders. You can rate whatever it is that you want to rate, because they're all the same. They're all cues that your body's trying to communicate with you. Okay. Now, the easiest thing to do is to start at a 10. So think about whatever that symptom is, whatever the thing you're thinking about, and tell me what is going on when that is at its very worst. So think about your worst day with your worst migraine, or your worst day with your worst anxiety, etc. Okay, and most people are pretty good at they know exactly what a 10 looks like. So a 10, let's say we're talking about anxiety. Okay, we're going to use that as an example. So let's say a 10 out of 10 anxiety means I couldn't get myself out of bed that day. I sat there in bed and all I did was think about how much work I had to do, how much I didn't get done, or the meeting that was coming up with my boss that day because they said they wanted to talk to me, and I know what that means. You couldn't even get yourself to function that day, okay? That's a 10 out of 10. I'm just giving you an example, but your 10 out of 10 is going to look different than anybody else's, okay? And there's a whole lot of things probably going on at a 10. So that I want you to start with, okay? And then a 0 obviously is the other end of the scale. There's nothing going on. You have no symptoms whatsoever, okay? Now, there's things that happen at a 1 that aren't happening at 0. There's bodily cues, okay? There are bodily cues that are happening at a 5 that aren't happening at a 0, and an 8, and etc., okay? So I want you to now start to think about, let's say you're not at a 10. Now I want you to go to your 8. What is it that starts to happen when you get to a level 8 we're using the anxiety? So you're at a level 8 with your anxiety. What starts to happen at an 8 for you that doesn't happen at a 7? And you might say, so we're not talking about your 10, okay? We're not at your full-blown 10, but we're at an 8. So how do you know you're in an 8? What is it that starts to happen? Now, let me give you some examples of this, right? You might say, I get really, really quiet when I'm anxious. Usually, I'm pretty talkative. I just don't say anything. I clam up. So I notice that I don't talk. Or, I don't even answer the phone. I don't even look at my phone. That's how I know that I'm that anxious, because I don't even want to know anything. I don't look at social media. I don't answer texts. That's how I know I'm in an 8. I'm starting to shut down. I'll still go to work, but I'm not at a 10, but I won't completely, I'm not engaging with other people. There's also bodily cues. So I might have my shoulders up really, really high. I might notice that I keep my shoulders up, or I start to get that pain up the back of my shoulders that go into your neck, or other things. I notice that I twirl my hair a lot when I'm at an 8. So again, you have to think about what it is that is specific to you, because some of these are the same for everybody, and some of them are very specific to you. And people will do things that they don't even talk about, like I start to chew on my lip, or whatever. So, or I get really, really tired, or that sort of thing. So those symptoms are going to be very different for everybody. So they're very specific to you. Now, most people are pretty good at telling me what a 7, 8, 9, 10 look like. They're very aware of that. Here's the problem. Not many people can tell me or identify what those symptoms are at anywhere between 0 and 6. Okay, that's because you do have symptoms, but they're not quite as loud. And as I said, your body gets progressively louder, and your behaviors get progressively louder as that number goes up. So I want you to start thinking about what are some of the things that I'm probably doing between, how am I going to label that 0 to 6? So at each number, you're going to identify something that is a continued sign that that particular symptom is getting worse, but you probably have not really thought about before. Now, here's the thing, right? What I have noticed, and what I tell a lot of people to do, is usually the people that are the closest to you do understand what those are. So I would ask them. So I'll ask, how some people say, what's going on? You're not being yourself today. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was being that obvious. That's because the people who are around you that really care about you notice before you do sometimes. So you have a tell. And a tell is usually something that lets other people know that something's going on with you, even if you don't realize you're doing it. And that could be things like your eye maybe twitches, or you are twirling your hair, or you start to shake your foot, or you get really, really quiet, or you get really, really talkative. Some people will tell me I swear more when I start to, get up in that scale, and before I even realize that I'm, getting to that place. So my advice to you is, as you're creating this 0 to 10 list, I want you to ask the people in your support network, your spouse, your partner, your siblings, your parents, whoever you're really close to, coworkers, your best friend, ask those people what some of those things are. And then you can also do that for them. Because if you think about it, you probably also know when somebody else is in that place. Okay, so I want you to make that list, the 0 to 10 list, and start to become aware of what that looks like for you. And then we're going to build on this, because this is going to help to build a connection with your body and those places, so that when you do have you're lower on the scale, you can actually do something, use one of the tools in your toolbox before it gets too late. You can take that migraine pill. You can, allow yourself to go for a walk before things get almost to a point where you kind of have to go all the way to a 10 before it's going to come back down. Okay, if that is helpful to you, or if you have any feedback, please leave a comment. You can leave me an email. Please subscribe to the channel. And once again, I am past 13 minutes. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I hope this blesses you today. I'm grateful for you. Thanks.